While the NFL season was wrapped up a month or so before the incident, I do feel for the people who had, well, everything canceled, like the NBA playoffs, baseball season as a whole, every concert, E3, on and on and on. Being locked inside has me feeling pretty frustrated and annoyed because now I have no excuse for not pumping out content. And as you can see, that hasn't stopped me from not pumping out content. But with this frustration came the urge to just really dunk on something, and the first thing that comes to mind, I've already made a video on, people really don't like it, but the second game close behind that one has always been NFL Street 3. For years, I've considered this game to be a mistake. The game that had so much potential, especially coming off of NFL Street 2, a game that I feel is one of the best arcade sports games of all time. But of course, you never want to be the one to replace the guy. You want to be the guy who replaces the guy who replaced the guy. But now after playing NFL Street 3 again, I'm even more frustrated. Why? Because it's not bad. Now listen, I'm not going to clickbait you into saying this is actually the crown jewel of the series or that this one is overlooked, because overall, I still think it's the weakest one. What I will say is that the attempts to try new things and refresh the formula to make it more balanced is worth a second look, kind of as a what could have been. So come along as we take a look at a few upsides and the many downsides of NFL Street 3. NFL Street 3 became a Sony exclusive game for some reason after 2 cross-platform entries. I only mention that because I find it weird, and from the research I did, there isn't really a reported reason on why they did this. After playing the game though, you start to realize how hard it would be to make this game work without 2 trigger buttons on either side, which the Xbox and the GameCube did not have. So what came first, the chicken or the egg, the controller, or the game? Who knows? It could also be that while the GameCube and the Xbox were on the way out, there was still kind of a following for the PS2 given how many were sold, so maybe they just wanted to make a quick buck by putting a game on the system as an exclusive. I'm not saying it's any of these reasons, but it's kind of what I've been thinking about. I don't really remember how it worked on PSP, but given that it's where I originally played the game and have bad memories of it, it probably wasn't ideal. I also looked for the control manual for the PSP, and I couldn't find anything. I promise I looked really hard. I know a lot of people accuse me of not looking up manuals, but I did for this one, and I can't find it. So before I get to the gameplay, which is really the bulk of this retrospective, I want to take a brief look at the career mode of sorts, because that's what you're going to be doing if you're not playing with friends. The bulk of the single-player experience is the Respect the Streets mode, where you take a randomized team of absurdly bad players and turn them into a crew of studs. As you win games, you earn respect, and as you lose games, you lose respect. As you hit specific checkpoints in Respect, you can face off against real NFL players and their assembled teams, which are made of randomized players as well as real NFL players. It's kind of a mishmash. So you're not playing the Falcons or the Seahawks, you're playing like Michael Vick and his stars and a bunch of random guys they found on the street. The team you inherit is really bad. I started at -10 respect, and I took a while just to even make it into the positives. This differs from the last game's Own the City mode, where you only have to worry about upgrading one character. In the game, you dump all your development points into a single athlete and build a team by recruiting players you beat from other teams that you face in the city. Then you take that team you assemble and take over territory until you prove yourselves worthy enough to take on NFL All-Stars in a final showdown. In Respect the Streets, you have to micromanage every single one of your players, which could have been really fun, but it isn't. See, the problem is you can only earn development points after a certain point by taking individual teammates and competing in drills, a rebranding of NFL 2's street events. Only instead of competing against other random opponents, you face off against a random selection of NFL players. This puts you at a grave disadvantage as your players can barely catch, run, or tackle at first. It can feel really slow, and restarting events will be common. But fortunately, once you find a way to cheese it or get lucky, you can really start placing in these events, and as you place in events, you get development points, thank God, because being required to come in first would have just made me rage quit this altogether. You take those points and dump them into your players. The problem is you earn so many points from drills so quickly that you can take a team of stinkers and turn them into an unstoppable force insanely fast. In 3 drills, not placing first in a single one, I was able to upgrade every player to be the best at their position. Sure, I couldn't upgrade my offensive lineman to be a wide receiver, but who cares when my defenders double as uncoverable wideouts? The game goes from being tough to being too easy without a particularly good difficulty curve, and it got old pretty quick. However, due to some of the really great new game modes, NFL Street 3 stays fresh far longer than it should. I was genuinely happy to see all the new kinds of challenges the game threw at me. There are more variations of football in this game than there were in past games, and it's a very welcome change. There's this time attack mode where the team with the most points at the end of a specific amount of time wins. The twist is possessions only last 1 minute, and you're awarded points on top of touchdowns for how quickly you were able to score. Running out of time is an instant turnover. Bank is a new twist on the style of point challenge. Instead of racing to get a specific amount of style points like in past games, all style points between both teams are lumped into a pool. The only way to claim these points is to score touchdowns. The scoring team claims all the points and the pool goes back down to 0. First to reach a specific total wins. Play elimination gives both teams the same playbook. Offensive plays are eliminated if they fail, so if you incomplete a pass, throw an interception, fumble, that move gets scratched from the list. The team with most points when there are no plays remaining wins. There are also modes where you get points for yards you gain, defensive point challenges where both sides of the ball can score, and so on. There is a lot of variety in all of these game modes, and honestly, a part of me wishes they appeared earlier in the series because I love so many of them. They're a really good addition. They're mostly great ideas overall, which is a real feat considering of how lowly I thought of this game. This really feels like the game where the devs threw everything they had at a wall to see what stuck, and most things actually did stick. So you might be wondering why I'm so down on this game if I like these modes so much and twists on gameplay. But once you actually start playing the football side of things, the game really starts to show its cracks. The fields that you play on are bland and mostly feel like they're the same rectangle with different skins attached. This comes after 2 games that features lively fields like beaches with a waterfall, rooftop arenas, and a construction site that actually had moving elements around. There were also people watching. NFL Street 3's fields feel stagnant and they're mostly forgettable, and that really sucks. Street 3 tried to add throw-offs to the game to mimic the traditional kickoff where teams could fight for their starting field position, but it's really uncontrollable besides choosing which of 2 wide receivers to throw to. It's a nice enough addition, but it really doesn't affect anything in the long run. It's just to make it a little bit more like football. The one new feature that used to have a very rotten place in my heart is the jump button. In the past, Street had a hurdle button where you could jump over defenders. It was widely animation driven and you could time out when to hit it and it would just work. Now to add more style, a straight up jump button was added so you can Koopa stomp barrels and get collectibles hovering over the field. The collectibles are footballs or money or situational opportunities that usually end up in game breakers. The problem is it feels clunky and janky. I tried to use it many times to jump over defenders, off barrels, off walls, but I rarely got it to work. There are aerial moves that I could never get to work, so I don't even have footage for them. It's just me failing at jumping. All of these features stacked on an engine that had been used for 2 previous games give Street 3 quite a bit of jank. It just doesn't feel as polished as the first 2 games in the series. It's like Madden or 2K in 2020. The longer you play, the less they start to work like actual sports. It's small at first, like camera derpiness or glitchy animations or the lack of momentum. But after a while, they start to compound and you can't unsee how funky everything feels. The most noticeable place you see this is the Game Breakers, the pivotal power-up of the NFL Street series. Before I say anything, I love the Game Breaker system idea in NFL Street 3. It's the best implementation in the series in my opinion because it's the most balanced version of a Game Breaker by far. In NFL Street 1, you got a Game Breaker where you fill the style point meter. You basically get fully maxed out stats for a drive until the ball is turned over. The opposing player can cancel it if they have one as well. In Street 2, however, there are 2 levels of Game Breaker. The first level is the same as Street 1, but level 2 gives you an instant score essentially. It's named perfectly because level 2 is game breaking. It is irreversible and you may as well put the controller down if you are on the receiving end of one. In NFL Street 3, however, the Game Breaker is used as a single move, whether it be a juke, tackle, pass, catch, spin, so on. You can hold up to 3 Game Breakers at a time so you can spread them out or use them all in one single play. It requires you to be deliberate and strategic when you use them, and the fact that it only lasts a second instead of an entire drive makes it way easier to counter. What's also cool is using a game breaker at the right time can also continue to fill the bar, and you can start chaining them together. Using one effectively and immediately earning another is satisfying and makes you feel like you earned it, and that is great. But again, because of the jank, a game breaker on defense kind of feels like teleporting to make an interception, or just flying behind enemy lines to get a sack. It's weird and it isn't fluid. Don't get me wrong, forcing fumbles from almost anywhere on the field is fun for a while, but it really starts to feel pretty clunky. All of these issues and changes also start to build a wall between new players and experienced players. The beauty of Street 1 and 2 is that you could hand anyone a controller and say, hold L and R while you do anything and you'll be fine. Some of my fondest memories were round-robin games where new players jumped into Street 2 and the loser would sit out the next round. More or less, we all got the same amount of turns, and that goes for most arcade sports games. Blitz, NBA Jam, etc. are all built on the idea that they're accessible to new players. They're easy to pick up. But in this game, there's this weird jump button that barely works. You don't have a traditional hurdle. You have to hold different button combinations to use game breakers instead of just activating it. I don't know if my friend who helped me get footage for the last video would even be able to keep up with me for at least a few games of learning the new mechanics. I wish he could come over and put that to the test, but that's a no-go in these very weird times. Basically, all of these compounding issues make NFL Street 3 a peek at what could have been. But what we are left with is a game with a lot of good ideas and very bland execution. Bland fields, bland presentation. Even the music is bland, although there is this Korn/Dem Franchise Boys remix, which combines the two things I loved most in 2008, popular rap music and disappointment. We were so close. Collectibles were a great addition, and the Game Breaker overhaul was great for fans who wanted more balance. But clunky gameplay, a bad jump button idea, and a poorly executed single-player mode really holds this game from reaching the heights it could have reached. I'm not going to recommend it, not that it's expensive or hard to find if you want to play it if you want, but what I will say is that after coming to this game with a very net negative view of it, I respect it a lot more now. It's still the weakest in the series, but it could have been the best with just some more time in the oven. And even then, it could have been a lot worse. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Street 3, if this was your only Street game, if this was the one you prefer most, tell me about it, because honestly, this game isn't so bad. I was really expecting to really dunk on this, and again, I didn't because of how much I respect this now. It's just, it could have used some more polish. That's really all it comes down to. But anyway, if you like the video, be sure to leave a like on it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this. And stay tuned for some more videos. I know it's been like 6 weeks since my last one, but if you're still around, thank you for hanging on with me. It's been a very crazy time, as I'm sure you know. But I'll see you all later.